Okay,
And I have that.
we are live. Oh wow, beautiful. Okay. And we're live. Let's get ready to rock. So we've got the Mishnah. The Mishnah is on Daf Gimel Amud Aleph. If you're following in the art scroll, it's on page 3A2. Please only answer Amen if you're listening to this live. Baruch atah Adonai. Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה baro.
Amen.
Okay, so the Mishnah, let's just review the Mishnah very quickly. The Mishnah says, Me'idan anu et ish ploni. So remember, we came to this idea where we talked about edim zomimim, conspiring witnesses. We're trying to give them a punishment, but we're not exactly sure. It's not obvious what the punishment is. So we've had cases where you had to switch the punishment because you can't give those punishments, and we explained why in the first Mishnah. Okay, we had afterwards extra added cases that were added to that in the Braita, including Rabbi Akiva as well. Now the Mishnah is bringing another case. What's this case? The case is where the Edim Zomin come and they say, this guy, he divorced his wife and he did not pay a ketubah. Okay? So what would the damage be? Now, he doesn't owe the ketubah. What are they trying to make him pay? They're trying to make him pay the ketubah. Should be open, shut case. Simple. Money. They're making him pay $1,000. So how much do they owe? $1,000. It should be simple. However, says the Mishnah, it's not simple at all. Why? What happens if the guy actually gets divorced and he has to pay the money? Then did they wind up costing him even $1? They didn't wind up costing him even $1. All they did is move the payment up earlier, right? But they would not have cost them a penny. So therefore, how do you assess this case where it might actually be that they didn't charge him anything, didn't cost him anything, or it might be that they cost him the full value of the ketubah? Everyone understand the conundrum of the case in the Mishnah? Okay? Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, so what do? We figure out, we figure out how much would a person want to give for this ketubah, that if she was widowed or he divorced her, she would have to pay. But on the other hand, if she would die, the owner, the husband would inherit the ketubah and he would not have to pay anything. That's what the Mishnah says. But obviously the Mishnah is not everything, because the Mishnah seems to say, well, let's figure out how much is the value of this maybe ketubah. We already explained last time that we would try and figure out how much would someone want to pay for this bond, if you will, that may or may not ever mature. And the value of this bond that may or may not ever mature, i.e., she gets the payout if he divorces her or if he dies from the inheritors, and if she doesn't, then so that's the straightforward understanding of the Mishnah. However, the straightforward understanding of the Mishnah does not make sense. Why? Says the Gemara right away. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Rabbi Yehuda says the name is Shmuel. Amar sorry, did I get the wrong? Sorry, page 4. Ketzad Shamin. How do we figure it out? Amar Rav Chizda beBaal. Rav Chizda says in the value of the Baal. Now, obviously, if the Amoraim are arguing over here on how you figure this out, it's not as straightforward as the Mishnah made it sound. The Mishnah made it sound like, what is the value of this document? How much is this document worth in the marketplace? Okay, which may or may not mature. But says the Gemara, one second, Rav Chizda, how do we figure out how much they have to pay? How much were they trying to force the guy to pay? They were not trying to force the guy to sell the ketubah on the open market. It's not about the value of the document, is it? It's about what you were trying to cost this person. Is that value the value you're trying to cost this person? It isn't. Says Rav Chizda, says genius. He says, we figure it out by the value of the Baal, of how much this was worth to buy out the husband.
To buy out the husband?
Yeah, we'll see in a minute what that means.
Not the value of the husband.
Not the value of the husband. Rev Natan says, sorry? He's depends on if you ask his mother or his mother-in-law. The second opinion says, and I'll explain everything in just a second. Rabbi Natan, Rabbi Natan says, no, Ba'isha, you figure it out by the wife. So let's just back up for 1 second and review. What is in the ketubah? the ketubah has multiple parts to it. The simplest expression of the ketubah is, so this is in every ketubah, is the designated amount that every single husband has to put in a ketubah for his wife. That is the mandated amount of 100 zuz for a woman that was married prior, and 200 zuz for a woman that was never married before. That is set in every ketubah. On top of that, you have something called tosefet ketubah. How much did the husband give, like as a dowry? How much did he add on top of that, saying, listen, if we get divorced, I'll give you an extra 1,000, whatever that value might be, okay? The third part of the ketubah is the properties that she's bringing into the ketubah, which she's going to use during this time, but he bears responsibility to make sure that they are worth exactly what they were worth when he took it over, and he has to restore. He's taking responsibility for all of those things, called the nechse tzon barzel, the iron sheep. In other words, a sheep might die, a sheep might get old, a sheep might get sick, but if the sheep was made out of iron, it doesn't change. So in other words, she's bringing these properties in. If there's depreciation on these properties, the husband says, listen, I'm going to benefit from these properties this whole time we're married, but I have an obligation to make you whole if we ever divorce, separate, or if I die, and the inheritors are going to make you whole from the estate.
Except no tax write-off.
No tax write-off, exactly. Similar, except no tax write-off, okay? So those are the three parts that could go into the ketubah. We mentioned, as Nathan said, there's one other part, and you have to hold on to this for a few minutes. It's not going to be relevant in this second. In a couple of minutes it will be. The other kind of thing that a woman could bring into a marriage is not stuff that's called sombar, an iron sheep. The other kind is called nechse melug, which means she's bringing in properties, and the husband is entitled, let's say there's a tree in their field, that she owns a field, so the husband is entitled to take the fruit. The husband is entitled to pluck. That's what milug means. He's able to take those things. However, what's the difference between these two things? That's a property that he's not obligating himself to ensure has no depreciation, because he doesn't own the property now. He only gets to take the produce, okay? So therefore, since he doesn't own the property, he's not responsible for the depreciation of the property. He's only getting the value of the produce that comes. That does not go in the ketubah, okay? Are we clear? So nichse miluk, there's three parts that are in it, one part that's on the side. Now listen very carefully. This is very interesting. Remember, I just told you that there's property that the husband assumes ownership over and therefore has to take care of if they go down in value, right? That's part of the ketubah process. Says Rav Chizda, what are these guys, the Edim Zomimim, trying to do? They're trying to obligate this man, right, to pay a ketubah. Now, remember, like I said earlier, it might be that I'll have to pay it anyway. In that case, how much cost is there to him? 0. Correct? In the case, we'll see that in a minute afterwards. We'll come back to that.
In the case that they don't get divorced?
In the case that they get divorced anyway.
Okay.
So then there's no difference. He would have to pay 1,000, and now he's going to pay 1,000. It's just that they would have made him pay it a week earlier. Okay? Now, listen to this. This is very interesting. Says Rav Chizda, there's two possibilities of figuring out the value of this maybe. There's the value of the maybe from the perspective of the husband, and there's the value of the maybe from the perspective of the wife. There's two ways you could buy the possibility of owning this bond. One way is you walk up to the woman and you say, listen, I know that you have a maybe ketubah. I want to buy from you the ketubah if it ever matures. Okay? That's one value. Let's say the value of that is 400. Okay? Out of the 1,000. Now let's go to the husband's side. The flip side way is that I don't buy the ketubah if it matures and they get divorced from the woman. I buy from the husband his rights in this marriage on the value, on the bet that it will never mature. Are you seeing?
Insurance policy.
But so you see, you could insure two ways. It's like buying stock in a company or shorting a company. Okay? What are you betting on? So listen carefully. In the woman's case, she's waiting to get something. So there's a maybe, and she needs to also figure out how to extract that money from her husband. There might be legal fees, there might be the wedge aras of going to Bet Din, to the court, to get it from him. The value of the woman's maybe is less. The value of the husband's maybe, who already is sitting on these lands, okay? Who has all these benefits, is higher, okay? So imagine, let's just say that his value is 500, her value is 400, okay? Now listen to what the Gemara is saying. I asked you a question before. This guy is not trying to sell the ketubah. So why is the question of Zomemin have anything to do with the actual value of this document? Remember, Zomemin is, what did you try to do to me? We're going to do that to you, okay? The only thing they try to do to him is possibly make him pay $1,000. So why is this not an open shut case? They either pay $0 or $1,000. The answer is, no, they caused no damages here. They said, this guy got divorced, he didn't pay the ketubah. Listen carefully, this is so powerful. The Gemara is saying, one second, you know how we assess the damage that they did? The damage that they did is the $1,000 of the maybe, subtracted from which is the value of this document in its current state. I want everyone to understand this very, very clearly.
Post-divorce?
Pre-divorce.
So the maybe with the positive.
Because what we're trying to figure out is, not is there a damage in the end retroactively. Because we have to obligate them now. What is the price of the damage right now? So you remember we said the other day, let's say you go to someone and you hurt them. So you have to pay for the guy for his pain. How do you figure out how much pain costs? You know, we answered, the value is, how much would you pay for pain meds to get rid of this pain? The amount he would pay, let's say the person's feeling so much pain from getting punched in the face that he would pay $800 for codeine pills to get out of this pain. Then that means, would he pay $850? No, he would pay $800. $850 already, you know what? I would swallow it. That means that the value of the pain to him is $800. Is that clear? Okay? We're doing the same thing here. They're trying to get him to pay $1,000, but we don't know if it will be or if it won't be $1,000. So how do we figure out what damage they did right now? The damage is based on what would the value of the maybe be versus the full amount. So if we go and we ask how much the woman's cost is, it's $400, that's the value of the ketubah right now, we would subtract the $400 from $1,000. And what would he pay? The edim would pay $600. In the flip side, if we're talking about the value to the husband, that's a damage that we don't need to subtract anything from. Why? Because the value of having the ketubah versus the value of losing the ketubah is how much is it worth to the husband to sell what he's got versus what he would have lost. I know this is a little complicated, so I want to make sure everyone's clear, okay? One more time, there's two parts to this. One is, am I buying from the husband all of the rights he has in this marriage? That's one part. That damage is assessed by how much would the husband sell it to me for, okay? If I look at it from the wife's perspective, if we ascertain this amount by how much is the value to the wife, that's not relevant to him because you're not making him pay that. The answer is, it is relevant. Why? Because if he would go to his wife and say to his wife, listen, I may have to pay you $1,000 if we get divorced. Let's cut a deal right now. If I paid you right now to give me that I'm off the hook if we ever got divorced, how much would you sell it to me for? If the value is $400, right? Then effectively, what's left in this equation is $600.
That's from the wife's perspective.
Yes. You understand? Yes. So if I'm buying the rights of the wife, they're worth $400, correct? Right. Now, if I tried to make him pay $1,000,
someone's obligation. Now.
But she would accept $400 of him. That's the market value. She would accept $400 of him right now. Then the difference between that $400 and the $1,000 is $600. That means he could have paid her off for $400 right now. You're obligating him to pay, or you were trying to, the full $1,000 now. You understand? So the remainder is $600. Okay. So we're assessing the damage you caused him by how much could he get out of this future debt by paying it today. You got it?
Net present value.
Net present value in the debt. You got it now? It's $400. It's amazing that if you move away from Edim Zomamin and you just ask, how much is bad debt cost? Buying debt is one of the biggest, again, destroyers of the economy, but also motivators of our economy. Without credit in our system, there is no economy. The way banks are giving credit is by people buying, effectively lending the money banks so that they can lend you money. So the entirety of our credit-driven economy right now is exactly this that we just learned in Masechet Makkot from 2,500 years ago. Yeah.
The woman enters the marriage with $100 million building from her dad.
What's her name? I have a shidduch for her.
How is that even relevant to the
Rabbi, I couldn't hear the
husband who
question.
may or
What
may
was
not
it?
be
I'll
divorced?
repeat the question as soon as I hear it. Sorry?
Is it relevant to this discussion about because they're getting $5 million a year in rent? Is that even relevant to this discussion or not relevant at all? And he uses the $5 million to pay the maintenance, so there's no damage, no chance that the building's worth less at any point.
So in other words, there's no, so that case would be nichse tzon barzel. Okay? So he'd be owning that land for the duration of the marriage and taking the benefit from it. But if anything goes down, he needs to pay her back for that. Okay? In that case, that's in the ketubah. If there's no depreciation, then that's not in the value. If there is depreciation, then that would be in the value.
What about the flip side? Somebody owns a rent-controlled building in New York.
Yeah.
And if you're forcing him to give it back to her, he's actually better off because he no
problem.
longer has to deal with a building that costs him money every year.
Huge problem.
So what happens? What happens if you're getting him out of a liability?
Yes.
I understand. So again, one would imagine that would deduce from the price of the value of the ketubah. Because remember, what we're trying to look at over here is actually not the ketubah. Right? The guy's still married. It's not the ketubah. We're trying to figure out what is the monetary damage of forcing the guy to go through this thing. And that's why it's so complicated. Otherwise it would be easy. They try to get him to pay 1,000, they have to pay 1,000. The answer is, but he's not paying 1,000. So how do we figure out the monetary value of what this could have been had it gone south right now? Okay? And that's why it's complicated. So is everyone understanding that so far the two sides of the Gemara? So we have two opinions. One opinion is going to say that you have to pay 500 because we just figure out how much is it worth to the owner to be in this marriage with this ketubah intact. And what would he be losing if he didn't have it? If the owner would say that's worth $500 to me, then the value is $500. The flip side is, no, we figure out by assessing how much would he have been able to pay off his wife to get out of the debt from this minute. You subtract that from the amount that it would cost him if he actually was forced to a full ketubah, and that's how you know he's lost his ability to be able to pay it down at a much lower rate, and the difference is 600. That's what the Gemara says. The Gemara just adds one last piece. Ready? Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Papa says, Bi'isha u'biktubata. So one opinion said, we judge it by the husband. That was the first opinion. The opinion of Rav Chizda. The second opinion is, we figure out the damage by the opinion of Rav Natan, that we go by the side of the wife. Rav Papa comes along and says, what's the halakha? Bi'isha u'biketubata. In the woman and in her ketubah. Okay, yeah, obviously. In the woman, you're siding clearly with the second opinion, right? That's what you're doing. So you're taking the lower opinion, which is the opinion of the woman. I got it, fine. However, yeah, you added the word u'biketubata. The whole question here is u'biketubata. What is Rav Papa saying? The answer is Rav Papa is not telling you what you think he's telling you. He's saying, I agree with the second opinion. Just understand one thing. The only thing that goes into this calculation, okay, just to be clear, the only thing that goes into this calculation are things in the ketubah. Let's say there are losses that came about from saying this guy is divorced and he has to pay his ketubah and he didn't pay it, that are not in the ketubah. What would the example be? Elements that are not in the nichse tzon barzel, they're in the nichse melog, they're not written in the ketubah, but you're causing me damage that's not written in the ketubah. Says Rav Papa, and this is what he's adding, a brilliant side point. He's just saying, I want to make sure you guys all understand. You can only obligate the edim zomimin for something that they knew they were causing. If they didn't know they were causing it, but they did cause it, or if they didn't know they were causing it, and you can't prove that they knew they were causing it, then they would not be liable. So let's say the nichse miloga are going to cost, I'll come to 1 second, the nichse miloga are going to cost an extra $500, but they're not in the ketubah. The edim zomin could say, listen, I know you're telling me I caused that. I didn't know I was causing that damage. I only thought, it wasn't my intent. I only thought I was causing them that. Now, even if you say, but you did know, or maybe you knew, could you prove that I knew?
No.
On the whatever in the shtar, we could say they knew. Why could we say they knew? And this is the last bit I want to say before I take Dan's question. Any item that's written in a shtar, in a document, we automatically say that the people know. Now that's wild in our understanding, because I have a contract with you. Jonah knows about it. How would Jonah know about it? Back in the day, when they were not living in a metropolis with 8 million people, and they were not Jews and non-Jews living together, working together, they were living in a place where things were much more communal. Anything that was written in a contract was, so to speak, filed with the city, was public knowledge. And that's why they wrote shtarot. That's why they wrote contracts. Let me explain. Let's say Ray and I are selling a field, they would write a contract. Why are you writing a contract? If I would lend money to Ray, we write a contract. Why are you writing a contract?
Public display.
On public display. Why? Let me give you the example. Let's say Ray borrows from me $100. What's going to be a lien? What's going to have a lien on it if he can't pay me?
There's no shame
Busha.
What's the lien on his property? Tomorrow Ray goes and sells a piece of land to Dan. Comes the end of my loan term, I come to Ray, I say, where's my $100? Ray says, I don't have it. I go to Dan and I say, Dan, sorry, get off the land, it's mine. You say, what do you mean? I paid Ray for it. Yeah, but you bought a piece of property that had a lien on it. It was mine. I was before your purchase. That's why we're so careful with the date on the shtar. You know, the whole thing with the wedding is at night, day is at night. Why? Because the value of the ketubah is monetary. If I then go to you and say, this is my field from the husband, the wife says, this is my field, he owed me this money. What will you say? I bought the field before you got married, before the ketubah. So whenever something is in a shtar, we say, it la kala. It has a voice. People know about it. It becomes public knowledge. So therefore, says Rav Papa, if it was in a shtar, the edim knew how much was in it. And if that's the case, then they can't say, we didn't know we were obligating him in this money. So Rav Papa is telling us, the halacha is, like Rav Natan, that we ascertain the value based on the wife's portion, subtracting that from the full amount, but with the limitation that it's only for values that were stated explicitly in the ketubah. Clear? Dan, question.
Tonight's episode of Ask Gemara. You're an Ashkenazi. As an Ashkenazi, the challah owns everything.
Kala, the wife.
Everything. Not the challah, the kala. The kala owns everything that was earned during the marriage. That's just the way it is.
Half of everything.
No, the kala owns everything. Ask any Ashkenazi.
That's just because they're putting in their wife's name for tax purposes.
Well, no, for tax purposes or for security purposes. You're with the family. You know, he's with making the money. Let's just say, okay, so end of marriage. Certainly not talking personally, but end of marriage.
Amen.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does the Gemara say? So, okay, time to give a get.
So I want to say the question out loud because they can't hear you.
Section of civil and halakha.
Yeah. So I'm just going to give the question. He wants to know what happens in a marriage where you have a person who's married to someone, and the whole time he's earning throughout the marriage, he's giving everything. All the profits are going into his wife's name. Okay. Now they get divorced. What happens to the assets that are in the wife's name? Now, civil might be a very different story. And maybe Morris could help us with that.
Depending on the state.
I don't know. I think it depends on the state. I know in California, right, various places, there's various civil laws depending on how they split it. In halakha, though, the halakha doesn't always take into account what you did on a civil level. So the fact that you put something in your wife's name, but everyone understands that it's yours, might not make a difference for the halakha. And I'll tell you why.
Depends who the ruling is.
There's a famous idea that says, Masha kana isha, kana ba'ala. What a wife has acquired, her husband has acquired as well. Now, is there a possibility that a woman will have all of her own money? Absolutely. What's that called? That's called a woman who says, Eni nizonit ve'eni ochel, which means, I'm not, ve'eni oseh. I don't want you to take care of my expenses. You don't have to pay for me to eat and for my shelter and whatever and all the things that you say you're going to pay when you start the marriage. When a husband takes on all those responsibilities, what the wife earns goes to him because he's responsible for all of the payouts. Okay, a wife is entitled to say to her husband, "I actually make far more money than you. I'll buy my own clothes. I'll buy my own house. I'll buy my own car. I'll pay for my own everything." Ve'eni oseh. Then her maaseh yadeh, her earnings they belong to her. If she does not say that, even if he puts something in her name, it's still their joint account, so to speak, and he owns it. All right? What he would have to give her in the case of a divorce is whatever it says in the ketubah. He does not have an obligation to give her amounts of money from the time they were married, like he does in civil law. However, and this is the big however, when a person lives in a country, one of the things that they accept on themselves is to follow the civil law of that country. That's called in the parlance of Chazal, Dina de Malchuta Dina. The rule of the kingdom, the law of the kingdom is the law. In which case, the halacha is accepting of the civil law in that matter. And it's not just that it accepts that it can't countermand the civil law, but we create a halachic reality that mirrors the fact that there is a imposed civil law here, which you are now obligated by.
Only in monetary issues?
It's not very simple, so we can't go into the parameters of Dina de Malchuta Dina.
That's the same principle as when you're living in Golas, you vote for the character who you think is the best character, the leadership of the country where you're living.
Correct.
Who you think is the best for Israel.
Similar, because you're effectively, by being a citizen of that place, you're buying into a person who has the obligations and the loyalty to this place. So as an example, if a person cheats on his taxes, and he's not allowed to cheat on his taxes, so he thinks he's very clever, and you know what? It's a matter of, the 11th commandment, thou shalt not get caught. But actually, Dina de Malchuta Dina. Are there rules where it applies and where it doesn't apply? Absolutely. And it's not simple. According to some opinions, you're not allowed to jaywalk. Halachically.
Why? Because it's against the city.
Because they passed the law. This is the law. You're living in this place. You have to keep the laws of this place.
But also it's pikuach nefesh.
Let's say there's no cars. It doesn't say you're not allowed to jaywalk only if there's traffic.
To follow the laws of
Yeah,
the
but
country.
You're not allowed to speed. According to some opinions, it's asur to go over the speed limit.
Yeah, but let's say you're living in the country and the country has anti-Jew laws.
That's a different story.
Again, we can't go into every case. I'm just trying to give you how
Think
far.
about if you live in a country that has rule of law.
Things that are not against halacha. Let's stay there.
How about you talking
Yeah,
about a country that has rule of law?
You have rule of.
Normal society.
Yeah, but as an example, what if they forbid you from doing brit milah? What do you do then? What if they forbid you from kosher, which is again taking place today in first world countries,
Yes.
right?
No brit milah.
No brit milah. Other places, no shchita in Sweden. Sorry, in Sweden, no shchita in Switzerland. This is taking place right now in our world. Happens to be, by the way, that's not necessarily anti-Semitic, unless you're taking the definition of Semitic to mean sons of Shem, which would include Arabs, right? Those laws aren't inherently anti-Jewish.
Also against halal.
They might be against veganism. They might be against whatever other things that they want to kind of push back against. But in cases where it's against the Torah, it might be that the Torah law would supersede. But there are cases where the Torah law could allow you to just pay more. And then you'd have to do that. It's like accepting that tax when you start. Now again, I just wanted to show you this scope. On the full side, there's a law that says you can't jaywalk, you can't speed, you can't go 56 miles an hour. That's one side. The other side says, no, the only laws that you can't keep, that you must keep, are the laws that are upheld by the state itself. So in other words, let's say if you jaywalked in front of a cop in New York City and the cop would not automatically pull you over and give you a ticket, that means that the country itself doesn't take that law seriously, in which case, like the idea that you would never get pulled over for going 56 miles an hour would indicate that that isn't a law of the country. That at a certain point, when it was egregious, 100% of the time the police would pull you over, at that point it's din machuda. So I'm giving you...
It's like stealing now. You can steal.
I'm giving you... By the way, in New York City right now, under, what is it, $965?
You're allowed to steal.
We're allowing you to get away with it because we're not holding you accountable. So, you'd have to really figure out what the law is in a state where there is no law. Okay? Let's move on. All right. Weiter, in Shas and Poiskim. Yes, question.
Just a question. You are talking about net present value when you are talking about the difference between the two pricing. But then net present value is embedded a concept of rebate. So there is no... When you calculate the value between the two, you calculate the time and then the value of money.
The time is the next Mishnah. So we'll see right now, in this next Mishnah, we're going to deal with the time, okay? Because you brought up a very good point. Let's see what the next Mishnah says, okay? Mishnah continues. Me'edim anu be'ish ploni, we bear witness on this person. Shu chayav lechavero ha'elef zuz. He owes 1,000 zuz. Amenat litnan lo mikan va'ad 30 yom. We're bearing witness, this guy, he owes $1,000. But when does he owe $1,000? When is the debt up? In 30 days, okay? V'hu omer, and the owner, the guy who they're claiming, the borrower, the lender, he says, no, v'hu omer, mikan va'ad 10 shanim. I don't owe it to him in 30 days. I owe it to him in 10 years' time. So he's not arguing over whether or not he owes the money. He's arguing over whether or not the debt is due in 30 days.
Say this guy owes 1,000, but the defendant actually says, yeah, he does owes me 1,000, but it's not 30 days. It's in a year from now.
I don't know what you mean when you say the defendant. The person who they're saying borrowed the money.
He's saying,
I agree, but I didn't borrow for 30 days. I borrowed for 10 years.
So the Eidim Zomim are still telling the truth, though. Somewhat.
The
They're lying about the time the money has to be given back.
No, the Eidim Zomim were not there at all.
Oh.
The whole point of Eidim Zomim is the guy comes along and says, you were there and you witnessed that it's this time. You weren't even here. You were in the reserve cut. I don't know why they're always in reserve cut. But maybe it's maybe that says more about me than the Eidim Zomim.
So
Either way.
Switched, yeah? They just went from the wife, now they just bring the new...
This is a new case, okay? So
time.
this is a time thing, okay? And it was what was raised a little bit by Nathan and a little bit by Jean-Luc. So they come in and they say he owes it that. Now, what's interesting is let's hit pause right now. So we understand the case? They come in, they say he owes 1,000 zuz 30 days from now. The guy says, no, it's not true. I owe 1,000 zuz, but it's in 10 years from now. You're basically shortening his loan, the term, 9 years, 335 days, okay? That's the case of the Mishnah so far, okay? We're not talking about a case where the guy says, I don't owe any money. What are you talking about? In that case, it would be really simple. What were they costing him? 1,000 zuz, right? That case would be very simple. But he's not saying that. He's not saying I don't owe 1,000 zuz. He's saying I do owe 1,000 zuz. But I don't owe it in 30 days. I owe it in 10 years. Sorry, what does it have to do with the Shemitah? You're reading ahead. We'll get there in a second. Okay? Says the Mishnah.
Question is a really good one.
That is the Gemara. That is the Gemara. 1 second. We're going to get there. Says the Gemara. How do we figure out how much this is worth? What is the value, therefore? What is the damage that they caused? The guy agrees he owes 1,000. So all they did was make it due earlier. What's the price or the damage of shortening a person's loan duration? Okay? Says the Gemara, Omdim kama adam rotze liten. We figure out how much would a person be willing to pay. V'yu biyado. And he would have elef zuz, the 1,000 you're trying to make him pay in 30 days. Ben notnan mikan vad 30 yom, ben notni mikan vad 10 shanim. The Mishnah says, simple. You know what the damage is? The damage is you're taking away from him the having of $1,000 for 9 years 335 days. How much would you pay for that?
No interest among Jews.
How much would you pay for that? How much would that be worth to you? That's the damage. Can we all agree that that's the straightforward way of understanding what the damage is?
Amortization schedule.
Problem is,
Shemitah.
nope, before Shemitah.
No interest among Jews.
Interest. The value of having the money for longer is the value you would pay to have that money. That value is ribit. So I would never pay that money. So how could you say that that's the damage that you caused me?
You can't deduct it.
How, you can't, no, forget deducting it. The witnesses are now going to have to pay the value of that, how much that's worth. But that value would never have been paid. Why? Because you can never charge him for
We're
that.
not talking interest.
It's-
We're talking principal. But we're just talking over time. So it's
What do you
the
mean
time
principal
value
over
of
time?
money. So it's the time value, right? So basically, it's if it's due,
Time value has.
I could spend $100 and pay.
But the time value is interest.
No, it's not interest.
Go ahead, explain.
It's not interest. Here's the grand. Here's $1,000.
Yeah.
Pay me back in 10 years.
For zero interest.
Zero interest.
Okay.
Okay, great. How do you? So now I'm paying you $100 a year for 10 years,
Okay.
and that's it. So now you want to make
Give him $1,000 today or 30 days.
no
So what's the damage?
$30 or $25, whatever it is.
Where did you get that number from?
He's
Divided by-
allocating 100 over the 100
You're doing
a
it
year
simply over time.
10
You're dividing
years.
it by time.
Just by time.
So what is the value to me to have to pay it faster? Is that what that's what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Breaking it down monthly over 10
So
years.
you're doing the same thing, just inside out.
No, but there's no interest.
What do you mean there's no interest?
Because we're not paying
Wait, what?
interest.
Guys, wait, one at a time, and then I can only hear one at a time. Yes.
Being put on the spot, but there's no interest. We're not talking about interest.
Okay, so if you would have had to pay $1,000 over 10 years,
Yeah.
now you have to pay $1,000 now. What's the difference? It's still the same $1,000.
Problem.
You could have used
Have it
that
right.
money.
Yeah, but you
I'm
lose-
just gonna pay it over a short period, over a longer.
So in other words, the value of it is the pain point
Yes.
of having to come up with that money right now.
Yes.
Versus the value of being able to have it for 10 years. That's exactly what the Mishnah says. Now, I just asked on that there's the price of adding any extra value onto that money is ribit. You can't pay more than $1,000. So how is that a problem? The answer is what Ray is saying is, I'm not paying that money to anybody. All we're doing is we're figuring out how much does it cost? What is the pain point that you caused me? The damage, the monetary value of the damage is the monetary damage that a person would pay to be able to have this money. So in other words, imagine it was not a Jewish person, it was a non-Jewish person. How much would I pay? I would pay $50 to have that money for 10 years. That's what the loan would be worth to me. So that's what the loan is worth to me to a Jewish person. The fact that I'm not going to pay it to this Jewish person is not relevant.
Can't charge more than the actual loan.
And he's not charging more than the actual loan because this guy is not involved at all. I'm just replacing. Exactly. Question.
I was going to say, could it be the value of what you could do with that?
Yeah, it's Signature Bank. You're paying.
So 1 second. So what Abe's saying over here, is exactly is turned inside out. The value, not the money, not the interest of it. It's the opportunity cost of not being able to have this money to invest.
Which is repeat.
1 second. The opportunity cost is the amount of money you'd be willing to wait for. You'd be able to pay. So what you describe now is the other side of the same coin. In other words, I don't know how much you'd be able to make with this money over 10 years. So how do we figure out the monetary value of it? So neither do you. But what you're willing to say is, I would be willing to pay 3%, 5%, 10% to have this money. That's the opportunity cost. Yeah. So opportunity cost is what gives it the value. It's repeat. Nathan, John Luke is asking. Great question. The answer, did we just lose them? Were you guys able to hear us? Were you good?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, good. Right?
Yeah, we got it.
So, because I saw a missed call. Sometimes when a call comes in, no one could hear. Okay? So, there's no money being paid. The opportunity cost is what you would have paid, and therefore, it's not a problem of rebit. But we still have Dan's problem that Dan read ahead in the Gemara, and we're going to come to that problem. What's that problem? Excellent. Let's see the Gemara. But everyone understands the Mishnah thus far? Yeah. Okay. Says the Mishnah. Says the Gemara.
Are we pricing the opportunity cost on the Goyish bank market that it's going to charge you 3% a year for 10 years?
Yes.
So what Nathan just asked is genius.
That's a pass through.
What Nathan just asked is, do we figure this out by the person or by the marketplace? Right? Now look closely at what, because in other words,
Interesting.
there are people who borrow from cash advance at 40%. They need the money. So would you say that the value is 40% for him because he really needs the money? Or would you say that a loan on Rocket Loans, right, you can get 2%? Let's look again. Look at what it says over there in the Mishnah. Omdim, we evaluate kama adam rotze liten.
40%.
How much? No. A person. Not kama rotze. Hu latet. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
You got it? So exactly what Nathan, in Yiddish there's a great word. It's called bavarning. Okay? Bavarning. Okay? Bavarning. You know what it means? It means when you're ahead of time, you're answering a question by saying it in a specific way. I knew you were going to ask that, and that's why I said it like this. That's what bavarning means, okay? So
It's a French name, bavarder. It's a French name.
it comes. Look, French and German have a lot of interplay because they're both originally based on Latin. Okay, so listen to this. This is very interesting. The Gemara, the Mishnah, actually is asking Nathan's question. It doesn't say how much he'd want, and you know why I was sensitive to pick up that word. It doesn't say kama hu rotze liten. You know why I was sensitive to that? Because the Gemara just asked that question one line ago. We asked, how much is the value of the ketubah? To who? To him or to her? And over here, the Gemara doesn't ask him, her. The Gemara just says, what is it worth to a person to have the money for 10 years? Okay?
The first case was subjective, right? The second case is really objective. It's just a marketplace value.
In either case, it's a marketplace value, but it's a subjective marketplace value. It's the question of the marketplace value buying her deed or buying his deed. Effectively, in the disagreement in the Gemara, they're two different purchases. But it's subjective in the fact that we're trying to figure out the damage by looking at it from two different vantage points. What would he have saved versus what would he have lost? So there's two damages. Her looking at it from his side is what would he have saved? Looking at it from her side is what would he have lost? Okay? In this case, we're just saying, what's the damage of making someone have to pay a loan earlier? Can I ask you a question? Let's just go away from Edim Zomim. Let's say I have a contract with you and you have to pay the loan in 5 years. I come back to you and I say, oh, sorry, I said 5 years. I need it now in 1 year. If we were being fair and I was renegotiating the contract, how would you renegotiate the contract? Not because I have you over a barrel because you need the money and I can make you take whatever terms I want, which is, by the way, that would be the case now. Mm-hmm. You're breaking the contract, I could set the terms pretty much, right? Unless there were special language in the contract, all right? But if we were being fair, how would we figure that out? Exactly like this. We would say, the difference between having a loan for 5 years and having a loan for 1 year, right, is that for a 5-year loan, you'd pay a higher price. For a 1 year loan, you'd pay a shorter price because the guy gets his money back in 1 year. Simple. So what's the difference in that price? And that's what we're doing over here.
But I still don't understand how you get around the rebate part of it.
Because remember, it's not rebate at all. Rebate is when the lender is paying the borrower more money. Right. Here, the lender and the borrower are not changing their terms. The witnesses are paying the lender.
Oh, because he never borrowed money.
He borrowed the money, but they have nothing to do with him.
The witnesses never borrowed the money.
So the witnesses are not paying rebate. He's just getting like a fine delivered into his bank account. Right. He's got nothing to do with it. The question is, isn't the value of this rebate, in which case there isn't an actual value because it's imaginary? So what we said is we'll figure it out. By the way, there's a Makkot Rishonim. The other opinion in the Rishonim says that you don't evaluate it like this, because this would be rebate. The other opinion says, how do we evaluate it? We don't evaluate it by what would you have paid to have this money, because paying any more money was never an option. In which case, the question is moot. You get it? So it's not that it's rebate. There isn't a monetary value to this, because you would never be paying any more to have it for 1 year or 10 years, because you would never have it. Therefore, the other opinion of the Rishonim, the Ritva actually learns differently. He says, no. How much would the lender be willing to give off of the repay to the borrower to get it earlier.
Right.
So you're going down.
So you're going down. In down, there isn't rebit.
Right.
So instead of giving me back $1,000, give me $970.
There you go.
And
Exactly.
4 years early.
Exactly. We could square away for less if I pay it off now. So that's the clever way of creating value without blaming it on a rebate amount, which actually is pie in the sky because it never would have been. Okay. However, Halakha, Rambam, other opinions, Bet Yosef, they actually state this rebate amount, and they just say it's just we're not actually saying that there's a monetary loss. We're just coming up with a mechanism to judge what the value of such a loss is in the marketplace. Jonah.
Why would I give a contract if I know that there is a Shemitah year coming up?
That's the whole point.
You guys all skipped ahead.
No, yeah, I just did say that.
I did not say the word Shemitah.
Oh, I thought we said
Not
that
yet.
the Gemara
Somebody
part.
jumped ahead of
Not
me.
yet.
Dan did.
Dan did. We're going to go to Shemitah in 1 second.
The
Yeah.
point that you're making now, it's basically the inverse of what's known in business as a make-whole payment.
Correct.
If you prepay your loan early, when you're a borrower, the borrower has the right to basically liquidate the damages to some discount.
The lender.
The lender. rather.
Prepayment penalty
Yeah,
now,
some-
apparently.
you know,
Exactly.
a penalty.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
I'm loving this.
Rabbi's dream.
So this is no, but you know why? Because sometimes you're trying to explain something and it's so complicated, and everyone's like, "Yeah, I did that today and yesterday and the day before. This is my life," you know. So it's beautiful when the example is something. It's literally. I don't know if you listen to the breakfast in the class when I talk about trees of gold.
Yeah.
Learning halacha and Torah from gold, from your business, where you already understand the Gemara better because of your understanding in the business world. Okay, says the Gemara. So far we're very clear. Says the Gemara, genius. Exactly what Dan brought up and Jonah brought up. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, Hamalveh et chavero le'eser shanim. If someone lends his friend money le'eser shanim, shvi'it misham tato. The 7th year comes along and nullifies the debt. Let's
For the
just
year or for the entire term?
forever. Okay. Now let's take a look. I want you.
So no debt can be over
Okay.
7 years in the Jewish people.
Exactly. Now, well, we'll see. We'll see.
It can't be 2 years if you're in the 6th year.
We'll see. We'll see.
That's what I mean, but I'm saying-
Okay, ready?
I'm waiting for somebody to shout principle, no?
We'll get there. We'll get there. Okay.
What if you make a 10-year loan to someone?
That is this case. If you make a 10-year loan to someone, says Rav Yehuda in the name of Shmuel, Shvi'it comes along and knocks it out. So in other words, you have to be a moron to give a 10-year loan because automatically, what is that? That is a 0-year loan because it's going to become nullified. Wait. Just wait.
I just don't understand Shemitah.
That's what I'm doing. That is what I want to do. Right? It's exactly what I want to do. I don't want to take a question because I want to explain Shemitah first. Let's look. You jumped the gun. Look at the pasuk right in the middle of the column. It says, "V'zeh devar Shemitah." This is the thing of Shemitah. Now, all of you familiar with Shemitah, that if I'm a farmer and I'm growing something in the field, I can't take those grapes, can't take those fruit and sell it in the 7th year. I got to let everything lie in the field. I can't do business with it. Everybody knows that. Okay, that's the 7th year. What most people are not aware of is something called Shmitat Ksafim, which means the lying fallow of monies. Says the pasuk, V'zeh devar Shemitah, and this is the thing of the Shemitah. Shemot kol ba'al masheyado, the laying down of every person who is pressing for a loan, Ba'al ma'asheyado, he's pressing with his hand, Asher Yasheh, that he comes to this person, Bire'eu, his friend, Lo yigos et re'eu, you can't press your friend for the money, Ve'et achivo, your brother, Ki kara Shemitah lamonai, because you called Shemitah to God. That means that if you lend someone money, you can't press him for the money when the loan went through Shemitah, because Shemitah made the loan null and void. So the pasuk is telling us that if you had a loan that went through Shemitah, and the end of the Shemitah year, chalas, the loan is done, you can't collect
Wait,
it.
it sounds like it's still saying that the loan could still exist if the person wants to pay it back.
All it says is you can't cancel the loan, you can't push him for the money, that's what you're picking up on, okay? You can't press for the money because the loan was shemitad, okay? The loan is gone, it's done, it's over.
That means the 7th year of the loan.
In the 7th year. Now remember, it's not 7 years in. Hold on,
So
one
that's the
second.
question.
It's not 7 years in. Let's say I gave a 10-year loan. Shemitah is year 1. I lost the loan in year 1. Shemitah is year 4. I lost the loan in year 4.
Not for everyone's the same.
Exactly. It's a cyclical time. 7. It's like Shabbat for the land and for monies. So every 7 years, the land can't be sold. You can't sell the product of the field. And as well, if you lend someone money, you can't collect that money.
So if
The
I'm
money.
working a field for 6 years and I sell it right before Shemitah, the other guy has a restart, or no? He also
No, it's the same year. Shemitah. So as an example, in Eretz Israel, right, where the law is relevant in Shemitah, the law of Shemitah for land is only relevant in Israel. If I own a farm in Wyoming, sorry, 2 years ago. If I own a farm in Wyoming, okay, it makes no difference to me when Shemitah is. Because Shemitah is only in the land of Israel, okay? That's when it comes to the farming, land. When it comes to loans, money is not tied to the land. So it's just between two Jews. So the year of Shemitah nullifies money, okay? Money for the money that's owed. That's why, by the way, if you're into wines, you have to be very careful.
Right.
Because if the bottle comes from Shemitah year wine, there's all sorts of laws. So anyone who's a real wine guy knows, stay away from 2000, whatever, 2014, whichever one is the bad one, you know, you got to be careful. There's all sorts of laws. You could still drink it, but a lot of those wines will say on the back of them, it will tell you that it's hechshered, and they figured out a way around it. Either it's heter mechira, or whatever the case might be. Okay, now, is everyone clear so far? So year number 7 undoes the loan. So Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel just says a simple point. Really nothing to do with our Mishnah at this point. All he's saying is, if you make a 10-year loan, in the Shemitah year, the loan is over. But now, we're going to plug that back into what we're saying over here, right? Now, but Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Shmuel is telling a chidush. What is he telling us? What's the chidush? The pasuk is saying that if you have a loan in the Shemitah year, what happens? It's null and void. Says Rav Yehuda in the name of Shmuel, if you have a 10-year loan, Shemitah misham tato, it undoes the loan. Ve'afal gav dehashta lo karina be'lo yigos. The Gemara says, wait a second, really? Why? Why does it undo the loan? I wasn't pressing him in year 7. The loan wasn't due in year 7. There was no pressing happening. So why should it undo the loan? It should only undo a loan which is due. My loan was not due in year 7.
So it would be undone in the 14th year.
It would not be. It would only be undone if it went past another Shemitah. Okay? The Gemara says, still, answers the Gemara, still, Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel is telling you, Sof ati lidei lo yigos. Still, what Shemitah does is it makes the loan unpressable. So even though right now you're not going to press, if you're going to press in 3 years from now, in year number 10, or whenever year number 10 comes out, you're pressing on a loan that got Shemitah.
What's his reason?
Okay, you got that? He's saying that pressing is not only if you're currently pressing, it's that this loan is exempt from being pressed upon. Okay, that's what Yehuda in the name
You just mean calling the loan.
called in the loan.
It still could be paid back. You just can't enforce the payback.
Good question. We're going to leave that for now. Okay, but in other words, you cannot collect this loan. This loan is uncollectible. Practically, the loan is done. You can't collect it. He doesn't have to pay. If he wants to pay you back, he's giving you a gift.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So the Gemara, based on this side point, which has nothing to do with us, the Gemara is going to ask a bomb question. Dan's question. You just told me that if witnesses came along and said that you owe this money from now until 30 days, and the guy says, what do you mean? It was a 10-year loan. So what did we say earlier? You didn't cost them anything, because anyway, the guy has to pay $1,000. The question is only now or later. Let's figure out how much that's worth. Ask the Gemara, what are you talking about? Mati Rav Kana, omdim kama, adam rotze liten v'yu 1,000 zuz biyado. That's what you want to say. Ben liten mikan v'ad 30 yom, ben liten mikan v'ad 10 shanim. V'i amrit, that's what you said in the Mishnah. That's only the difference. I amrit shivit misham tato. If you want to say like we just said, how much did they cost him? Kulu nami ba'ushlu meleh. Nathan can't hold himself back. He's shouting in the Bet Midrash.
I'm sorry.
If a 10-year loan never comes to fruition, because it hits a 7 year in the 10 years, That means that if my loan was a 10-year, you Edim Zomimim try to make it a 30-day, what did you cost me?
Nothing.
Not the value of having the money, the whole loan. Because the whole loan would have been null and void, because it would have been shmitad. Got it? So how much should they have to pay? The whole thing. Power. You got the question? Okay?
Let's say.
Okay, let's repeat it. Every loan which hits Shemitah gets null and void. By its very definition, then, Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, a 10-year loan is going to pass a Shemitah year.
Okay.
Now you might say, okay, only loan a Shemitah undoes is a loan that's already due. You already owe the money. Okay? Because it says you're going to press the loan, and therefore it's only going to be in that case. Okay? Here you're not pressing. Okay? However, Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, says no, even future pressing is also pressing. So if that's the case, yeah? If that's the case, in the Mishnah, that a 10-year loan is automatically going to get shmitad, when they said you owe this money from now till 30 days, what are they doing? They're making the loan not hit shmitah. In which case, they're not costing me the value of having the money for longer. They're costing me the value of the whole loan that I would have been patur from because I passed the shmitah. You made me not pass go.
Yeah, by the way.
It would have been free for me.
So let's say it's due in 30 days, but it's past due because I missed it, and now we're in Shemitah. Too bad.
Explain again, sorry?
Meaning,
You forgot to repay it in the 30.
no,
and you hit
it was due, but I didn't have it. I didn't pay it, and now we're in Shemitah. So now you
Shemitah would undo the loan.
Even though the contract ended?
Even if the contract ended. Why? Because I owe you the loan. Anything I owe is undone by Shemitah.
Even the default.
But these are all theoretical.
Even if the default took place. Why? Why is that the case? Very simple. Why? Money that I owe you is undone by Shemitah, correct? Who cares if I owe it to you because the time of the loan is up, or if I owe it to you because the time of the loan was up last week? In either case, I owe you the money.
Rabbi, respectfully, anybody who takes out a term loan
Yeah.
would then just
Impossible.
default on the loan
Can't even do a 10-year lease.
and wait until
Character.
the speed.
So Dan is asking the obvious question. And by the way, you know who thought of this problem? His name is Hillel. And Avi Peltz is waiting for me to say this word. Okay? This man's name is Hillel. Okay? And I'm going to visit it in just 1 second. So the Gemara asked the bomb question. The answer of this question is going to answer your question. Amar Rava says, so how could we have a case in the Mishnah? Answers the Gemara, Hacha b'mayaskin. And when is the Mishnah talking about? B'malve al hamashkon u'b'moser shtarotav lebet din. When the guy borrows with a collateral. Or when the guy borrows, so in other words, I have your car. I took your house. I have collateral for my loan. Or if I took the loan papers and I brought them to Bet Din and I said, Bet Din, this guy owes me the money. I'm giving you the papers so that you can collect them. In those cases, in both of those cases, the halacha says, Ditnan, we learned, Hamavel HaMashkon, if you borrow with a mashkon, or if you give the papers of the loan to the Bet Din, and mashmitin, shmitah does not undo the loan. Why? Hold on. Let me finish. Guys, let me say it and then you'll ask me. Ready? This is crazy. The minute you have collateral, I don't have to press you. See, remember you caught it? You caught the word. It says press. If I already have collateral, I'm not nervous. I have collateral. I got you.
Worst comes to worst, keep.
Worst comes to worst, I got the collateral. So I'm not forced to press. If I don't have to press, the whole thing of Shemitah is, don't press, Shemitah. Shemitah only comes when there's a pressing of the loan. If I have collateral, there's no pressing, so there's no Shemitah. If I give the papers to Bet Din, there's no pressing. Why? Because I am not the one that does the pressing. I put Bet Din in charge of collecting them. Exactly. They are responsible for collecting the loan. Once the loan is not being collected by me, Bet Din's loans are not shmitad. Okay? Now, hold on.
They're the intermediary, Bet Din?
Yes, they're the intermediary. Okay, now ready. This is. Wait, let me just finish this one line for the sake of Avi Peltz, and then you'll ask the question. Says Rashi, you know what this means? Giving your papers over to Bet Din? That is code word. Code word for Avi Peltz?
So,
Prusbul. What does Prusbul mean? Hillel was very worried about what Dan was worried about. Every single Jewish person said to themselves, in year 6, in year 5, and some of them in year 4, forget that. I'm not lending any money. In 2 years, in 1 year's time, the debt's going to be canceled. Forget about it. So what happened? No one was lending any money. Hillel comes along and says, Hillel tiken ha'olam bepruzbu. Hillel fixed the world with his creation of something called pruzbul. Now, I made everyone in this community sign a pruzbul 2 years ago. Because I said, if someone owes you money, you got to sign this pruzbul. What does the pruzbul do? It gives over all of your debts to Bet Din to collect. That's what pruzbul does, which makes it not shmitarable. What did that do? This poor guy who cannot buy food for his family, but could not get a loan, what happens now? Now, no one's worried about giving him a loan. So what Hillel did was, in effect, undo what the Torah did.
That's wild.
Wild! Right. But what did he do? He created a mechanism where people were not. The whole point of Shemitah was that it should go to poor people. So what happened because of Shemitah? Poor people couldn't eat. So Hillel created a system where you'd be able to give it over. Now, hold on 1 second. Rashi and Tosafot have a disagreement on this statement. Because if you look carefully, the Gemara did not say the word pruzbul. It said, give over your loan to Bet Din. Now, pruzbul is a document that says all of raised loans are given over to Bet Din. That's what pruzbul is. So Rashi says, the same thing. That's what the Gemara says. You gave over your loans to Bet Din. Tosafot says, no. No, that's not the same thing. Moser Shtaratov is where you gave over the loan document for him, and the loan document for him, and the loan. You gave them all of the loan documents. Pruzbul is, I signed a document saying, all of those loan documents in my safe, in the bank, belong to Bet Din. I didn't give them the loans. Tosafot holds that pruzbul is midrabanan, and moser shtarotav lebet din is midoraita.
And it overrules it?
So Tosafot says Rashi saying pruzbul and moser shtarotav is the same thing is actually not being correct, because there's a difference between the two. However, in either scenario, let's just wrap up and then I'll take Morris's question. In either scenario, what the Gemara's answer to the question is you want to know how come this Edim Zomimim didn't cost 1,000 because he cost me my Shemitah get out of jail free card. Answers the Gemara, we're talking about a case where the loan guy, the lender, had lent the money on a collateral. So therefore there's no Shemitah. Or the loan guy had lent the money by giving over the thing to Bet Din. So there's no Shemitah. Or according to Rashi, the loan guy had written a pruzbul, so there's no Shemitah. Okay? In any of those scenarios, that would be the answer. So Dan's question, along the way, I answered your question, Dan. What now? Nobody's going to lend any money. The answer is, there's 3 ways that you could lend money. Way number 1, take a collateral. Way number 2, you give it to Bet Din. Way number 3, or according to Tosaf or Rashi, same thing, you write a pruzbul. Morris.
So in American law, there's a 6-year statute of limitations.
Contract
claims, including
Other than me.
collecting money, right? So if I sued someone right before Shemitah because he owed me money, is that the same thing as turning it over to Bet Din?
One more time. I don't think I understood the question. Yeah?
Okay, before the Shemitah year, he owed me money.
Yes?
Is that the same thing as turning it over to the Bet Din?
You're asking a fascinating question.
Yes, I am.
So let me answer. Let me answer the question. You know what it's going to depend on? Something that we already saw in the Gemara. Now I don't expect anyone to get this, but I'll be super impressed if somebody does. Morris asked, what if I'm suing someone for something, for damages, for whatever, it doesn't matter what. I'm suing someone. Bet Din says the guy owes me money before Shemitah. Does Shemitah undo that money that I owe?
Before the judgment?
Well, go.
Running to before the gavel is drawn.
What did we say over there?
I admit my thing, I pay less.
So why do we say that works?
Because
he waits for the Shemitah.
Give him a minute. You're at the finish line. Oh my God.
The net present value.
No, that was literally, that was up to Wemby. He didn't even need to jump. In the case that we learned over there, what do we say? That if the guy comes in and he says al pi atzmo, he can't obligate himself to Rabbi Akiva. Why? Because it's a knas. But if he comes in and he says that the Beit Din said that I owe the money, then the halacha is that he has to pay it. We asked, what do you mean? It's a knas. And we said, it's a knas until they obligate you. The minute they obligate you, what is it? It's just a monetary obligation. It was a fine to become responsible. But now I'm responsible. I just owe you $100. The question of Morris is going to depend on that. Now that you damaged me, do we say that I owe you the value of nezek, in which case it doesn't say that Shemitah undoes damage, it says Shemitah undoes debt? Or do we say that once a Beit Din rules on the case and says you owe him $100, it's just I owe you $100, in which case it will do the Shemitah because it's just a debt. It's going to depend on exactly that point, and we're going to be able to come back to that and see that soon. Boys, I have to say, this is the fastest everyone got on the train of any Masechet yet. You guys are rocking and we're like 1 week in. I love it.